Please rise and join us.
His current is trying to let me like castles of sand, castles of sand. My fear like an enemy army is marching ahead, but I'm making a stand. They surround me on every side. Your love is my armor, I fear no evil. Darkness runs from your eyes. I won't be afraid, I won't be afraid. You're going before me, and oceans are parting. You're fighting my battles when my feet are failing and my heart is shaking. You're fighting my battles, you're fighting my battles, you're fighting my battles, you're fighting my battles. Time after time, you're my refuge. You heal every scar. You're guarding my heart. Your promise, the love that I cling to. My rescue, my friend. You come rushing in. You surround me on every side. Your love is my armor. I fear no evil. Darkness comes from your light. So I won't be afraid, I won't be afraid. You're going before me, and oceans are parting. You're fighting my battles when my feet are failing and my heart is shaking. You're fighting my battles, you're fighting my battles, you're fighting my battles, you're fighting my weakness, you are strong. Every trouble you have overcome. In my weakness, you are strong. Every trouble you have overcome. In my weakness, you are strong. Every trouble you have overcome. You have overcome. You're going before me, and oceans are parting. You're fighting my battles when my feet are failing and my heart is shaking. You're fighting my battles. 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 You're fighting my
That wasn't too bad for me, right? Let's start without me. You guys can start without me.
I can see the promised land, though there's pain within the plan. There is victory in the end. Your love is my battle cry. When my fears like Jericho, build their walls around my soul. When my heart is overthrown, your love is my battle cry, the anthem for all my life. It will fall, the mountains will move, every chain of the past be broken into. Over fear, over lies, we're singing the truth that nothing is impossible when you know. There is hope within our lives, in the wars that rage inside.
I'm a little sick still, so just bear with my voice. As many of you know, I have my very own older brother. His name is Jack, and he's one of my best friends now, and we get along great and everything. But growing up, I'm fairly certain that my brother believed early on that I was put on this earth purely to torment him and knock down Lego towers. And then he had a tendency to put toys in the freezer and then see if we could smash them apart. And they were usually my toys. And I didn't care for that. So there was some fighting that went on between me and my brother. And there was tears and yelling, and my mom eventually getting in the middle and intervening and telling us to apologize and hug it out and forgive each other. So I feel Peter on a personal level, and I can understand why they're sitting around, and he goes up and he is asking Jesus, how many times do I have to forgive my brother? And I can just see this, that like Andrew was his brother. Andrew probably poked him or was, making fun of his haircut or had stolen his fishing net for like the 20th time. And so Peter goes up to Jesus and he asks, how many times do I have to forgive Andrew? And he even offers, I'll forgive him 7 times. Is 7 times enough? That seems generous, 7's a good number. It's the number of days of creation. It's a holy number. That sounds good, 7. 7 seems like a good number of times. And then Jesus is like, no, you need to forgive him 70 times, 7 times. Which is kind of, it's not saying 490 times. Jesus is telling him, you have to forgive your brother every single time, which is a lot. And there's no whining, and there's no feeling out of it, and no saying, oh, well, but this time he really irritated me. There's no exception. You have to forgive him every time. And then Jesus goes on to tell us a story, a parable, and explain the kingdom of heaven to us. And so I'm going to read from Matthew for you. So it says, therefore the kingdom of heaven may be compared to a king who wished to settle accounts with his servants. When he began to settle, one was brought to him who owed 10,000 talents. And since he could not pay, his master ordered him to be sold with his wife and children and all he had, and payment be made. The servant fell on his knees, imploring him, have patience with me, and I will pay you everything. And out of pity for him, the master of that servant released him and forgave the debt. But that same servant went out, and he found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 denarii, and seizing him, began to choke him, saying, pay me what you owe. So his fellow servant fell down and pleaded with him, saying, have patience with me, and I will pay you. He refused and went to put him in prison until he should pay the debt. When his fellow servants saw what had taken place, they were greatly distressed, and they went and reported to their master all that had taken place. Then his master summoned him and said, you wicked servant, I forgave you all that debt because you pleaded with me, and should you not have had mercy on your fellow servant as I have had mercy on you? And in his anger, his master delivered him to the jailers until he should pay his debt. So my heavenly Father will do to every one of you if you do not forgive your brother from your heart. Okay, so let's break this down. We have one servant, and he owes 10,000 talents. Anybody have any idea how much a talent is? No.
Year's wages.
A talent is 20 years of a day laborer's wages. So I did the math, figuring out at minimum wage what it would be. So if you're assuming a 40-hour work week, one talent, is $290,000. So 10,000 talents, that's $2.9 billion with a B. That's like enough that you could buy an NFL team, a private island, and have enough money to add guac at Chipotle. So the servant's debt is so great that he couldn't pay it off in his lifetime, in his children's lifetime, in his children's children's lifetime.
guy. This is just enormous debt. And the servant, all he can do here is beg mercy, ask for forgiveness from this debt. And the king gives it. He says, you are forgiven, go on. And he's repaid. And he doesn't make him sell his possessions. He doesn't say, here's a repayment plan based on your income. He just wipes it clean and says, go from here. So here's the big reveal. The king is God and we're the servant. And we all have a $2.9 billion debt that we cannot hope to repay. And we can't do it on our own. But we are the lucky recipients of God's grace and mercy. He sent his son to die and be resurrected to pay for our sins. Every single one, every single time. So no matter how badly we mess up, and no matter how much we miss the mark by, and no matter how many times we do the same dumb things over and over, we're forgiven every time. And that is mind-blowingly amazing. So what do we do with this mind-blowingly amazing gift of forgiveness and our debts being repaid? It should be easy, it should be obvious, it should be, go out, forgive your neighbors, and love everyone, and strive to be Christ-like, and what's more Christ-like than forgiving others? Except that it's not easy and it's not obvious. Because Jesus continues his story, and he talks about the forgiving servant going out, and he immediately finds someone who owes him money. And does the servant forgive his neighbor and, show the grace and mercy? No, he does not. So this guy owes him 100 denarii. Anybody know how much a denarii is? Yeah. A denarii is 1 day's wages. So 100 denarii is $5,800 in today. That's not even enough to go out and buy a new car. That's nowhere near that $2.9 billion that the servant has. And so the servant, instead of showing mercy and grace to this small thing, he goes and he assaults this guy. He chokes him. He demands that this man be thrown into jail and his wife and his children taken from him. It's like he just totally forgot the magnitude of this debt that had been forgiven him. And it'd be easy to stand up here and say, that's the bad guy. Don't be that guy. He was forgiven a debt 500,000 times later, and he goes out and he assaults a guy, and that's the guy that you don't want to be, and don't do that. But I am that servant, and I think a lot of us here are that servant, where we see this amazing gift and this amazing grace, and we don't respond to it how we should. In my family, we joke that we have a book of grudges. It's this metaphorical book where you have to look up which uncle is talking to which other uncles and how many brothers and sisters they have at any given time, because one might have not sufficiently been appreciative of help, or one might have been giving too many tips about how to cook ribs, and another one might have thrown a plate of ribs. Normal family stuff. So my family is they're not really great at the whole forgiveness thing. They have a hard time of letting go of the mistakes of others. They have a hard time of letting go of past hurt and pain. They stop seeing each other as brother and sister, and they stop seeing them as fallible humans who sometimes make mistakes, but are generally good people, and they just see them as the guy who always shows up late, or the lazy one who doesn't help, or the guy who's just never there. And they let their resentment and their hurt and their anger get in the way of seeing their brother and sister for who they truly are. And they let it keep them away from each other. Forgiving your brother and sister means that you can wipe away the slate clean, just like God wipes our slate clean. It means we can stop counting the number of times that they've messed up. We can stop keeping tallies of how many times we've forgiven them. We don't wash our hands and say, God will sort it out. We don't hope for some sort of karmic justice to come and make things right and balance the scales. We just keep saying, I forgive you, and I love you, over and over again. 70 times 7. You are my brother, I love you, I forgive you. Because when we stop doing that, when we let the anger and the hurt and the resentment build up in our hearts and our minds, we can't love our brothers and sisters as fully as we should. And forgiveness allows you to let go. It means you don't have to keep score. It means that you don't have to watch and make sure that the person you wronged gets theirs. It frees you from spending your time seeking revenge. When you forgive, you don't have to worry about any of that anymore. I had a friend who, we were really good friends, and then she dated my brother, and things ended really badly between them and between her and my family, and I was very hurt. And for a long time, I wanted bad things to happen to her. I wanted revenge or justice or something because, you know, and I found myself being obsessed with hearing how she was doing and whether things were good or bad or, you know, things like that. And I spent a lot of time and a lot of mental energy on this person. And I found when bad things happened to her, it didn't make me feel better. It didn't make my pain go away. It didn't make me a better person that she was hurt. In fact, it made me feel worse. And so I let it go, and I forgave her, and I let it be okay that good things might happen to her, and that good things could happen to her, and that she didn't have to be in my life anymore, but I didn't also have to hold on to that anger and that pain and that wanting to seek revenge. And I think my life has been much better because of that. And forgiveness gives us another great thing, is hope. And hope lets us see the possibility of change. See, when we get hurt, we want to learn a lesson, right? We want to touch the stove and it's hot, and then we don't touch the stove again, and we don't get hurt. We want to protect ourselves. That's why we talk about, when we talk about forgiving, I'll forgive, but I won't forget. Because we don't want to be seen as a fool, we don't want to get hurt. And so we close ourselves off from the pain of the past and to protect ourselves from future pain. But when we do that, we isolate ourselves. We put up barriers between us and our brothers and sisters. We are called to love our siblings, and we can't love them at arm's length. We have to forgive them, and true forgiveness allows for hope for better. Instead of saying, my brother hurt me and he will always hurt me, it says someday things could be different and things can get better. And forgiving others is sometimes the hardest thing that we can do, because holding on to that anger and that pain sometimes feels good. But it's better if you can let it go, and you can let hope, and you can let peace enter in where that anger and that hurt was. And we know that we should forgive like God forgives us. See, I'm going to bring it back to the parable. We have this incredible debt that has been forgiven us. And so we, in response, go out and we forgive those who trespass against us. Because if God can forgive us, if God can forgive everything that we do, then how are we to say that we do any less to our brothers and sisters? Amen.
In 30 minutes, it's gone. Wiped out. Sometimes 15, 10 minutes. My family did not even be 10 minutes anymore. Yeah. There's nothing left but the plastic pop-up timer covered in teeth marks. What Martha was doing was essential. But what Mary was doing was eternal. Don't let the essential drown out the eternal. Martha was driven by perfection. Jesus' visit was very important because he was only a few weeks away from death. But Martha was distracted by the many things she had to do. Like Martha, many of us miss those divine moments in life because we are distracted and trying to do everything perfect to receive people's approval. At the end, like Martha, not only will we fail, but we begin to doubt God's affection for us. This will take a toll on the faith of God over time. Mary's life was driven by excellence. Someone said perfectionism is doing things right, while excellence is doing the right thing. Do y'all get that? Perfectionism is doing things right, while excellence is doing the right thing. Women in biblical times were more interested in their household work, and learning at the feet of a rabbi wasn't their cup of tea. Mary pushed aside her household work to sit at the feet of Jesus because it was the right thing to do. She was driven by excellence. So the lesson they have for us is a desire for perfection in less important things is a weakness of personality, not a strength, as a lot of us like to call it. Our careers and ministries require attention, but not so much that we neglect to spend time with God. In life, the most excellent thing we can do is to push back unimportant things to make room for God's presence, because without God, life is nothing. In conclusion, I go back to the illustration of my mom. The best thing that she did for us over the years was to sit in her chair with her Bibles every day, praying for each and every one of us, praying for each and every person in her family, her church. Those dishes got done eventually. She didn't care if you came in, there was always the coffee pot was on, and if she had to wash the coffee cup for you to drink, so be it. She loved on her grandchildren. She spent time with her grandchildren. She chose what was excellent. She made those right choices. She made sacrifices for her family. She put God first. She wasn't perfect. Nope, not by any means. But she always chose the right thing when it came to her God. And that's what we all should strive to do. Amen.
Songs. I want to let you know that there's a basket at the back for offering if you feel like to offer money. Eric, do you have the papers for the lilies? Okay. And Eric has the sign-up sheets back there for the lilies. Please rise and join us.
I Seeing things I wish I